Bad Bitch Bible.
Hey girls, guys and days, welcome back to the Bad Bitch Bible, and in this episode, we are going to be doing the whole daddy issues lore. In Women We Trust, men always lie, and it's something I've known my whole life, and I feel like when it comes to daddy issues, I am the patron saint of that. I feel like a lot of you guys have seen so much different content that I've posted on TikTok, maybe my IG stories about my daddy issues over the years, even on Twitter back then when I was still active on Twitter, but I've never really talked about it in depth. I've also referenced a dad here, a dad there, and it's because I have so many dads, or I've had so many father figures present in my life. So a lot of people understandably get confused because I have so many dads and they don't really know which is which, the lore behind it. So today we're really gonna get into it. But before that, I do want to do a quick shout out to Gmax Keto. Thank you guys for being so supportive throughout all the years I've been making content. Like back in 2020 pa lang, they were so supportive of me. I was purchasing their products, tagging them in my IG stories, and then one day they sent me a huge bulk of stuff. Cut to today's episode. They are sponsoring today's episode. So thank you so much, Gmax Keto. That is our beverage of the day. Okay, so let's get into my first dad. I'm giving names to each of the dads so that you can remember them better, and we're gonna do it based on their jobs. So the first dad we're gonna call the racer because he was a race car driver most of his life before starting his own businesses. So my mom and my dad, they met back in high school. The racer dad is my biological father, and my mom had a very strict upbringing by my grandmother. She was so insanely strict, as in grabe talaga, like bawal lumabas, she couldn't even play outside. And I understand why my grandma was like that because she lost all of the men in her life also. Like a lot of the people that she loved, she unfortunately lost. And I know I laugh about it now, but it's because at home, I used to call my grandma the Black Widow. Because even my grandma had 3 husbands. Each of them passed away. My biological grandfather, so the dad of my mom and her siblings, he passed away due to a plane crash. He was a military man and he was in the Air Force. Plane crash happened. He passed away when my mom was like 3 months old. So yun pa lang, diba? My grandma was devastated. And then her second husband, trip na trip talaga ng mama ko yung mga AFAM, yung mga men in uniforms. Yun talaga yung bet ng lola ko, my mama. And so the second one passed also. And then my third lolo, ito na yung lolo na naabutan ko na. This is the lolo that I actually called lolo because he was the only one that was around for me to witness. And that lolo, he passed away due to lung cancer naman. He was a colonel. All 3 of my grandma's partners all passed away. All 3 of them were men in uniforms. They were either in the army or Air Force or anything similar to that sort of line of work. And they all passed away. So that said, my lola became super protective of her kids. She had 3 kids, my mom included, and she was always so strict. As in, you had to make paalam 1 month before leaving the house. They weren't allowed to commute. They weren't allowed to go anywhere without a helper or a driver or, you know, parang bantay sarado talaga. So I understand why she was really, really strict. But at the same time, it made my mom want to break free, right? And find her own path, do her own thing, explore. After seeing the way that my grandma's personal love life, her relationships played out, that's why we ended up calling her the Black Widow, because everyone, after they smashed, they passed away. Cut to now that my mom was in her teens and she was super sheltered, wanting to explore and live her life. When she met my dad, the racer dad, I think they were like 14 or 15. They were still in high school. And my dad kind of opened up a whole new world to my mom. My dad was from LSGH, so he was the classic GH boy, and my mom was from an all-girls school. And they literally met at an interaction, which is so insane to me. It's so funny to me because I had my interaction back in high school, so it felt like a full circle moment, but I didn't end up with my interaction partner. If you guys don't know what an interaction is, it's basically when the girls' school and the boys' school, they interact. So I think some schools are partnered with DB, some schools are partnered with Ateneo or LSGH, basta all-girls school and then all-boys school. And then the boys' school, they visit your school and for a day you get to interact with boys. It's such a weird dynamic, but I get it. Like, I get the intention behind it and why they do that. But it's just so funny lang na ganon na a boys' school, they come over and then they pull the chairs for you, they bring gifts, you share a meal with them, and it's a whole thing. So anyway, imagine that. right? My mom went to an all-girls school, met my dad at an interaction, and then they started dating, fully dating from then on, and fell in love. Like high school sweethearts turned college sweethearts. They were so young and in love, and it was my mom's very first proper relationship. Many young relationships are super toxic. Classic talaga. For context also, my grandma is fully Spanish. My grandpa is Spanish, like 75% Spanish, 25% Pinoy. And so yung trip ng mom ko is Amboys, right? And so when she met my dad, I think he was just like fresh in the Philippines at the time. In GH, parang he was going back and forth pa between the States and Manila. That's why later on in this podcast, you'll start to notice like all my dads, they were Amboys. Bet na bet talaga ng mom ko yung mga parang they're in and out of Manila, they grew up in the States, but they look Filipino. Yun yung bet ng mom ko. So anyway, for context, I think he had just kind of moved back to the Philippines at that time. He had a bunch of siblings too. And so I think my racer dad's perspective on life was very different compared to a lot of Pinoy boys. And that's what my mom liked. Imagine my mom coming from a super strict household, and then you meet this guy who's kind of from the States, is a racer. He was already competing at that age, had his own car. Diba? Parang, okay, wow, getting somewhere. My mom was experiencing the world. So, ayun, they started dating. But because of how toxic it is, they had me, by the way, at 19. My mom was 19. My dad was 20-ish. They were third year college at this time. Both of them went to CSB too, so they were Taft kids. And by the time they had me, they were super unprepared talaga. I think because of their tumultuous relationship. Even if their relationship was not crazy, being at that age, grabe, I can't believe having a baby at 19 or even 20. It was fully like a baby having a baby. Even now, at 26 years old, I feel like if I was to have a baby right now, I'd still treat it like a teen pregnancy. Like, I'd shock myself and feel like, oh my God, I'm not ready to have a kid yet. So what more my parents back then in the 90s, having a full-on baby, unprepared, neither of them had proper jobs also. Grandparents naman, they had an interior design company. So my racer dad, when he wasn't racing, I think he was sidelining there, kind of working for his parents, his grandparents. I think at that time, my mom just got launched as part of Star Magic, and she was just starting her acting career, her modeling career. Wala pa siya doon, you know? Like, she wasn't in a stable point in her life yet. She was so young. She was just starting to work, getting rackets here and there. It wasn't stable for either of them. Like, neither of them had a solid thing yet because, hello, nasa college pa sila, diba? So, when they had me, it was crazy town. I remember being really young and my mom would fully bring me to CSB and I would attend classes with her because she was a young mom. I remember we had our Nana, who is my longest helper ever. She was around already, but syempre, my mom had to juggle all the things, and then she was trying to prove pa to my grandma that she was, you know, ready to be a mom, blah, blah, blah. So, ang chaotic, ang daming nangyayari. I was going to school with her. She was trying to juggle taping, rackets, all of these things. And so, a lot of the times, I would either be passed on to my lola to help take care of me, and if not, my helpers to take care of me. Admittedly, it always takes a village man to raise a baby, but that was kind of my childhood, right? Because of how chaotic it was. They had so many other issues in their relationship, which is, again, normal in any couple, but there were some things that weren't normal. And I'm really glad that my mom didn't tolerate that kind of behavior or that kind of relationship. I'm really glad that she stepped out of it and she chose herself finally, and she chose to live a healthier, happier life without my dad at the time. I feel like my racer dad has changed since then, and I'm really happy if he has. But back then, he was a whole completely different beast, and there really was no way to build a relationship around them. He officially left when I was 2. I think my mom broke up with him around this time. I'm not sure if my mom fully broke up with him because she found out that he was cheating on her. But I also think that that was just the final straw after all the things that were happening in their toxic relationship na. So when my mom broke up with him, she found out he was cheating, diba? Turns out that he was cheating on my mom with like his course mate ata in industrial design or interior design, I think. And so he was helping her with her projects, things like that. Tapos yun pala, he was cheating na. Cut to 2024. Now, my racer dad is still with that woman that he cheated on my mom with. And they fully have 2 kids together. So technically, I have 2 half brothers on his side, but I've never met them yet. They have stayed together since, which is so crazy. My mom and my biological father, the racer dad, they haven't really talked ever. I think that they tried to talk every now and then. I think my mom was always open to the idea of having a dad figure for me, or trying to have my biological father in the picture with me, but he wasn't as responsive. So I can remember just a few times I saw my biological father, my racer dad. At 7, he invited me to his wedding with, yun nga, his kabit that turned into a wife. He invited me to his wedding, and it was a really weird interaction because since 2 years old, I haven't seen him, diba, for 5 years. I saw him na at 7 years old, and at 7 years old, that's the only time that he made contact with me. I remember trying to call him one time and kind of telling him like, hey, I want to be like emancipated, some shit like that, like, oh, I don't want you in my paperwork anymore. And he ended the call on me. I remember him and my mom going back and forth in emails, and my racer dad basically saying like, you know, the phone works both ways. If my kid wanted to reach out, she would. And that was the kind of behavior or mindset that he had at the time, which made it very hard to build a relationship with him. So when he invited me to his wedding when I was 7 to, you know, the kabit nga naman, I was shocked, diba? But at the time, I was so young, so I didn't fully understand the situation. And what made it even worse was that he didn't allow me to have a +1 at his wedding at 7 years old. Like, how is a 7-year-old even supposed to go to a wedding at that age, right? I appreciate that he reached out with an invitation, but to not allow a +1 is wild work. Like, I can't imagine at that age going to a wedding. Like, I was scared. I don't know these people. I barely know my dad. Actually didn't know him at all. I didn't know his new wife. Blah, blah, blah. It was impossible. I remember, I think we even had to ask Racer Dad if I could bring our helper, Nana. I don't remember if he said yes or no, but in the end, I just didn't feel comfortable going anymore, so I didn't. Because, like, how? Again, at 7 years old, it's such a weird... He didn't even introduce me to his wife growing up, and again, he was going back and forth between Manila and San Fran, and yet he never really reached out. He would say he's reaching out, but then, again, how does a 7-year-old respond to that? That same year, I saw him at a mini golf day. I think he took me out to play mini golf, and then he bought me a bunch of clothes, but a lot of them didn't fit because he didn't really know my size, he didn't know my style. I didn't like a lot of the things that he brought me. I saw him... Oh, wait, no. And then he sent me an iPod randomly when I think I was maybe 9 years old. He randomly sent me an iPod in the mail. I think I asked for one. I told my mom that I really wanted an iPod. And so Racer Dad sent me an iPod, but it was fully secondhand. Like, there were ear crumbs in that iPod. Like, it was so gross. I remember having to clean it, but at that age, I was just so kilig and happy that, oh my God, my dad finally sent me something to get attention from my biological father. Parang shook na ako doon, masaya na ako doon, which in retrospect is like fucked up that I was even happy with that. But because I had such major daddy issues at 9 and I didn't even know it yet, I was happy now with that. I didn't see him or talk to him until about 15 years old at my uncle's wake. So get this, right? Crazy family lore, but my aunt basically hired a hitman to kill my uncle. And this is on the news. Like, you can actually look it up. So my uncle, who was one of the first Filipino race car drivers to get into NASCAR and compete there, right? His wife fully hired a hitman to shoot him along like Congressional or something, somewhere in QC on the way home. Like, he was coming home from a race, I think from Pampanga or Subic or whatever, and he was driving a really nice car on the way home. Bang, bang, fatally murdered, shot. Oh my gosh, this podcast is taking a turn. It's feeling like true crime or something like that. And it turns out that my aunt was basically having an affair with another guy. And instead of coming clean to my uncle, she hired a hitman to have him murdered. And so then my uncle died. We went to the wake. Obviously, my dad came. He was the brother of my dad. And that's the next time that I saw my dad. It was just so crazy though, you know, being that my aunt was there and the whole wake situation, me not knowing that it was my aunt who had him killed because they were still investigating during the wake. Later on, we find out that My aunt flees the country. I think she's still on the run. I haven't seen my cousins from that aunt and my unfortunately deceased uncle because she didn't allow custody. And anyway, it's like really, really messy on that end, right? And so that was the next time that I saw my biological dad. Imagine not seeing your dad since you were like 7, and then the next time that you see him is at the wake of your recently murdered uncle when you're 15, 16 years old. Parang ang jarring ng mga happenings, diba? And it's like a little chaotic. I remember talking to him that day, catching up with him. It was really nice, as dark as the setting was and as sad as everything was. I was still in a kind of like, oh, that's kind of nice. I got to see my dad, nice little happy headspace. I was also 15 and learning how to drive, and so he took me around in a car, and I remember we left the wake so that he could teach me how to drive for a couple hours, and then we went back to the wake. I didn't really get to see him much during that trip outside of the wake because obviously we were all at the wake for a very good reason. And during that trip, he promised me a car the next time that he came back to the Philippines. He was like, okay, for your 17th, 18th birthday, I'll get you a car. He comes back to Manila and he doesn't get me the car. And I'm fucking pissed. At this point, my heart is crushed because it's like he would make all these false promises. So parang at this time, I started to drift away from him and I started to not talk to him anymore because ayun nga, he promised me a car, didn't get me one. I was on a solo trip to Bangkok. And when I got super drunk, I started to call my dad, drunk calling him, telling him how shitty he was as a dad and going off about like, oh my God, I hate you as a dad. Blah, blah, blah. You never did this for me. You never called me. You never texted me. Blah, blah, blah. And I was going off the fucking rails. My toxic trait is that whenever I'm drunk, I call up any of my dads and I shit talk them for 30 minutes and then I end it. And then I call again and then I end it. So that's my toxic trait. So I didn't see him, didn't talk to him for a really long time. I think it was 2020 or 2021, definitely COVID, when he reached out to me and said that he found a baby album that my mom made when I was a baby and he wanted to ship it to me. And he shipped it to me through DHL in the scrapbook that my mom gave, which my mom has been begging back for a really long time, by the way. When I opened it, there was a wad of cash there that my dad gave me. So I was like, oh, okay, so now he's trying to provide for me or be nice to me. And that was when our relationship started to kind of open up again because it felt like he was being more active or at least trying to. So every now and then he would reach out, like on my birthdays, he'd send me some money, check in, see like, hey, how are you doing? How's work? And we started to kind of talk more casually and more regularly, which I started to appreciate. Kasi parang, okay, I started to let go now of the fact that he was a dad in my life at all. Kasi parang, ayun nga eh, like, the biggest bonding moment me and my biological racer dad ever had was when my uncle was fatally murdered. Like, how can you build a relationship off of that when there really isn't much else going on? So when he was starting to reach out here and there, parang umu-okay na ulit. My CRV started to bog down in 2021, I think. And I was telling him like, hey, I really need another car because my CRV, it's fucked up. And my racer dad gives me the car of my fatally murdered uncle. He fully gives me that car. It's this RAV4. It worked really well still. It was old, but it was such a sentimental car for my family because obviously it was my uncle's car. And when I got the car, the energy was down bad. Like, I was a little scared to be haunted driving the car. Not gonna lie, like, imagine knowing that your uncle was murdered, like shot, and then you get his car and it's kind of like a gift, so you're supposed to be happy and it's sentimental, but then at the same time, it's weird because the energy, you could feel it eh. When you entered the car, it was not giving good vibes. And so I Googled like how to cleanse the energy in a car or like in general. And they said that a lot of Disney songs cleanse energy. And so I was blasting Disney songs in the car for 24 hours trying to cleanse it. And then I saged it pa. And then naglagay-lagay pa ako ng mga healing crystals. And so I ended up using that car for a while. And I was thankful naman to my dad. And I told him naman, like, thank you so much for offering the car. It would have been nice if you got me a brand new car, bitch. Because you haven't supported me for 23 years at the time. But I'll take it. Thank you so much. Use that car until I kind of abused it and there was really no way to get it to move uphill when it would go uphill, parang hinihingal na talaga siya. And so I messaged my dad like, okay, this car from my uncle, it's giving up. Can you get me another car, or can I sell this and get a new car? Selling it was not an option, obviously, because it was a very sentimental car to my family. My family kasi, on the dad's side, they really treat cars like sentimental objects, maybe because it's a racing family. All the men on my dad's side were racers. They really take care of their cars. They like getting a bunch. If you go to my grandpa's house, he has a whole ass parking lot, right? And a lot of them aren't even cars that he actively uses. They just hold sentimental value. And so he was like, no, we're not selling that car. And so then I traded it for another car. So that's how I got the Dodge Nitro, which I really like now. And I've been using it for about 2 years-ish. But it's so aksaya sa gas. Like, the full tank is 4 or 5 and the gas goes down so bad. So I'll probably be getting rid of that too and then flipping it for another car. But yeah, so I've never really had a proper relationship with my racer dad. If anything, it was always in and out, and I kind of ended up viewing him as like a distant uncle or distant relative that I kind of get along with here and there. And I started to distance myself from the idea of him being a proper father figure in my life, because he wasn't. He also sent me, I think, this big box of stuff when he went to Manila during COVID. And when he did, I did a whole TikTok like unboxing some presents from my deadbeat dad. And it went semi-viral. By the time it hit like 500,000 views, I took it down because I was like, wait, what's happening here? Because I thought it was funny, but I didn't think it would go semi-viral. So over the years, my relationship with my racer dad, there were eras where I felt unloved and forgotten. But over the past, I guess, few years since COVID, where he started to reach out more, make me kamusta, gift me a car here and there, I started to feel like he wanted to be an active, present figure in my life. Not really a father, but like an older friend, I would say. I want, of course, to get to a point where I see him as a father, but right now I don't. And I think that's fair because he was really gone for most of my life and I don't really know him. I've shared just 4 or 5 meals with him ever. And I think if you ask me how I worked through it, I didn't. I feel like we can do a separate episode on like how I worked through my daddy issues or how to get over daddy issues. I feel like that's a completely separate podcast. Second dad, we're gonna be naming the director. So my first dad, racer dad, right, was in my life from 0 to 2-ish. The director dad was in my life from 3 to about 7. He and my mom, I think they met on set or at work for sure because my mom was modeling acting at the time. My director dad, he worked on Nginig, Maaalala Mo Kaya. My mom and my dad, I think they worked on a bunch of other shows together. I can't really remember. But because he was in my life from the ages of 3 to 7, those are my most formative years, right? And from those ages kasi, I feel like that's when you really become who you are, or your character build. They really say, like there are studies out there that say that from 0 to 7, those are the most formative years of your life. So whatever happens during then, that kind of shapes you the rest of your life. I do think that out of all my dads, he was the most impactful one because he was the dad that truly made me feel so loved. He would bring me to taping. He would bring me to work with him. He was always so deeply involved in my life and we would get along. I remember being so giddy around him, so happy. I was really enjoying having a dad. I never really thought that I needed it, but having that kind of energy and protection and kind of just vibe in my life was nice because my mom was always so busy. Rocketera talaga siya ng taon. If you think I'm a hustler, oh my gosh, she is an insane hustler talaga. So knowing that she was always working, she was always out, it was also nice to have another person to rely on while my mom was busy being a single mom, trying to provide for me. So my dad, director dad, he would always bring me to work with him. He would bring me to taping with him. Unfortunately, he and my mom ended up breaking up. I think I was around 6 to 7 years old. I don't remember the exact details of why they broke up, but I specifically remember one big fight kind of happening. I don't remember if he cheated on my mom or like there was one big misunderstanding, but it came to that point where all of a sudden our lives changed and we kind of stopped going over to his house already. And I remember my mom really telling me that it was over. But what made him the most impactful dad in my life out of all my 3 dads was the fact that even if him and my mom already broke up, he would schedule weekly dates after school with me. So he would go all the way to my house, even if, again, break na sila ng mom ko. He would drive all the way to my house, pick me up after school, after I was done with homework, showered and all that, bring me to the mall and be like, okay, let's get dinner, let's hang out, pick out any of the Bratz dolls, Barbie dolls that you want. And I would fully pick out like 3 dolls every week, or like every time I would see him, pick out 3 dolls. He always made the active effort, and for that reason, I always felt like he was truly my dad. Even if, again, he's not my biological father, he acted like one, and he made the active effort, even if him and my mom broke up. So it kind of gave me that sense of belonging and that sense of identity, I guess, that I really liked. He and I had a lot of really fun moments, like when my mom was sleeping, he would allow me to use scissors and cut with knives. So, diba, when you're like 3, 4 years old, that's bad. But he would like let me use adult scissors and adult knives, and we'd cook together. And having those kinds of father-daughter bonding experiences, I guess, really helped shape me, because it was something that I didn't have a little earlier on in my life. And then now I had that, and I was really appreciative of it. But unfortunately, he too was fatally shot as well as like my uncle. And I know I'm laughing now, but I don't know why I have that coping mechanism every time I talk about something that's dark or deep or something terrible that have happened in my life. But it is my coping mechanism, because like, what can you do, right? Like, my dad's dead, period. But he too was fatally shot on my mom's birthday. So get this. Me and my mom were in Boracay. We're on a trip together for her birthday. It's raining. Later on that night, we fully get a call, or my mom gets the call rather. I was really young at that time. She finds out that a fight broke out in a bar in Makati, and the guy who started the fight or was in the fight went back to his car, came back with a gun, and started bropping everyone, including my dad. So my dad, unfortunately, got shot. By the time he got to the hospital, he was pronounced dead. A lot of other people at that bar. It's called V Bar. You can even look this up on the news, really. My dad wasn't the only one who passed, I think, but there were so many other people who were injured, which was actually so insane to find that out on my mom's birthday. It was fully raining. Seeing her distraught, as she should be, as expected naman, but also watching all of it play out in the news was horrendous. But because I was so young, I couldn't fully grasp it or understand what the fuck was even happening right now. I didn't really understand that he was dead. Like, I knew the concept of death and I knew what that meant, but I didn't really know how to process grief. And so I remember my mom telling me, like, your dad just passed away, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, what the fuck? Can I go play outside now? And that was it. Like, I really didn't process anything talaga until the wake. That's when it kind of started to sink in, and I started to realize, oh my god, he really is gone. And then months later, about a year or two later, that's when it really hit me, where I was like, wow, I never see him anymore. I never have anyone to talk to. The absence of him in certain moments was what made me fully understand that 7 or 8 years old, that he was really gone. I don't know why I didn't process it properly really young. Maybe it was because I was really young. Maybe it was because I didn't have a good understanding of what death was. Or maybe also because I've always been the more tough one in my family. Like, because I saw how tumultuous my mom's relationship was with the racer dad, and then how her fight broke out with my director dad, and how my mom in general, she was a little unhinged for a time, but I totally get it, right? Because, hello, she and my racer dad broke up when they were like 20, 21, and then now her second lover was fatally murdered on her birthday. Obviously, she would be unhinged, because if that was me, and she was going through this, by the way, my mom was going through this at exactly my age, 26, or 25 even. If that was me, I would be off the rails unhinged. So I see completely why my mom was so not okay in those moments, and I totally don't blame her for anything or kind of put any more stress on how she was at the time. I don't want to put that on her. I never want to put that on her, because I totally understand where she was coming from. Because again, putting myself in her shoes at that age, ooh, I would be so fucking unhinged. It would be criminally, literally, I probably would have ended up in jail or like in a mental institution, because I wouldn't be able to handle everything that was happening to me. But I've always been so proud of my mom and how she chose to love again and continues to search for love. She was always such an open book about all these things. I think a lot of Filipino parents tend to hide their emotions from their kids or just aren't as open. But because I grew up in such a westernized, I guess, household, right? I don't know if you guys saw my TikTok, but like in my family, we don't really say ate or kuya, we don't say opo or po. Like, we call everyone by their name. Even my helper, Nana, who's been with my family since my mom was born, literally since the day my mom was born. Her name is Regina. I always grew up calling her Nana because that was my nickname for her. Like, everyone in my family kind of starts working young-ish, so it's a very westernized kind of household. That said, I think my mom was a lot more transparent with me and open with me than a lot of Filipino parents are. It's a very different upbringing, and she's always been such an open book because she wanted me to learn from a lot of her experiences. That said, because I took on a lot, I would say, of emotional trauma at such a young age, seeing my racer dad and how that played out, and then now my director dad, how that played out. By this point in time, I was so unemotional, and I have no idea why. I think it was because seeing my family be so emotional, like my mom especially, I wanted to be the complete opposite because I saw the pain that she went through because of certain instances or certain men, and I was like, okay, I don't want to go through that pain. I don't want to feel that way or show that I felt that way. I don't know why I ended up taking on the opposite approach, but that's what ended up happening. And so after he was unfortunately fatally murdered, I kind of had to deal with that for the next year. But my mom was in her complete like Britney era, I would say, of like unhinged. Hindi naman siya bald or anything, but like you could tell that she was going through it, again, for obvious reasons. And so, cut to the model dad that everyone knows about now. But before that, we gotta take a moment and take a sip of G-Max Keto. I have been talking about G-Max Keto since I think 2020 when I first discovered them online. I just saw a couple other influencers posting it, and you know me, I'm always so quick to judge. We listen, but we don't judge. No, but I actually judge, and sometimes like I would look at other influencer posts and I'd be like, is that a good product? I actually had the series at some point, like trying things that influencers recommend, and I ordered some myself, and then I was addicted, posted a story, talked about it, and then they sent me a fuck ton of their products because they were so grateful that I enjoyed their products, and so then they sent me so much more. I was posting a lot of them back in 2020, but then now I'm doing 75 hard, you guys. So 75 hard, if y'all don't know, it's not called 75 hard for no reason. The rules of 75 hard are actually insane. So for 75 days straight, you must work out 45 minutes indoors, 45 minutes outdoors, read 10 pages of a book every single day, non-fiction book, drink 1 gallon of water, take progress photos every single day, follow a specific diet plan. So for me, I'm just following 1,500 calories per day, low carb, low sugar, and high protein. And that's it every single day. But what makes it so insanely hard, as if it didn't sound hard enough already, is that if you make a mistake one day, you have to go back all the way to the start and start over from day one. Even if you fuck up, let's say day 42, you have to start from day one. And that's what makes it 75 hard. I've actually already done 30 hard and 45 hard during COVID, and I haven't done any hard programs since then. And so honestly, I've gotten quite soft over the past few months, and I really want to shape up because hot girl summer bods are made in the winter. And when is the winter? Now, bitch. So I am crunching down now. That's why I'm back on my G-Max Keto. This one is the green tea plus calamansi flavor. They do have a couple more flavors. So they have this one, which is the green tea plus apple mix. They also have this one, which is their coffee. It's the 5-in-1 coffee mix with avocado, collagen, coffee, stevia, and coconut. And what's great about all these is that it is super low calorie. So for example, for the green tea plus apple mix, green tea is great for weight management because it literally helps you go, if you know what I mean, which is why I like matcha. It usually has the same effect. It also has apple, so it helps control your appetite. It has L-carnitine, which is great for fat burning. And again, I say all these things to people that want to cut. If you don't want to cut, don't worry. Like, this might not be for you. But if you are for cutting, this is a great alternative to sweet drinks. This isn't per se going to like make you lose weight in one day, but if you are someone that is into a lot of iced teas, sugary drinks, this is a great alternative because of all those things. It also has 0 sugar. They make use of stevia. It's low carb. It's keto friendly because again, low sugar, and it only has 80 calories each, which really is barely anything compared to a lot of iced teas out there. You're fully gonna spend like 200 pesos on an iced tea out there, and then drink 150 calories, double the amount of calories compared to what's in these. I really like, honestly, out of all, this has always been my favorite, the G-Max Keto Green Tea plus Calamansi, because it's the most refreshing one for me, and honestly, it really helps me curb my cravings. I do have such a sweet tooth. I'm okay to skip carbs. Like, I can do a whole day of no rice and no potatoes, no starchy foods, but if you tell me to go a whole day without sweets, girl, I'm gonna die. And so that's why I always need my sweet treats or at least a sweet drink. But the best part is it's also so affordable. If you are someone that tends to spend like 200 pesos, 150 pesos on a drink outside, you might as well get these because these are just buy one, take one on 12.12, which is not bad at all. Super duper affordable na because this one has 30 servings compared to, paying what? 150, 200 for just one serving of iced tea. At least this one has 30 servings. It'll last you 1 to 2 months if you have like one every day or one every other day. You can have it any time of the day. They're honestly just so good. Now back to the model dad. So this is the dad that was with me from about 8 years old until lately. Is he even in my life anymore? Who even knows? Basically, he was with me the longest. He and my mom married in 2007. They had my sister in December of that year. So they basically got married quite quickly after director dad died, which was a whiplash experience for me, to say the least. But yeah, model dad is the one that everyone kind of knows because he was the one that was posting the most on social media. And while he is the one that everyone kind of knows, I feel like he's also the one that gave me the most issues because we got so close, because we were living together from the ages of 8 to almost 15. I left the house again at 15 because I moved back in with my grandma for college. From 8 to 14, I was living with my mom, my dad, and my sister. And again, he is the dad of my sister. I must say that at the start of my relationship with model dad, we really weren't that close talaga. As in, parang ayaw na ayaw ko siya. I would always compare him to director dad. Feeling ko hindi siya the best for my mom. I didn't think he was the one for my mom because syempre, my director dad just passed away. So a lot of the things that I would feel towards my director dad, I would kind of shift towards him and kind of project those feelings. And I was so young, I wasn't really good at processing my emotions at that age. I was 7, 8 years old. By the time that he got into my life, I was really distant. It was only about at the ages of 11 to 12 when we started to get close because I started to realize that model dad was actually very supportive. At this age, I got into blogging and photography. I was dabbling in a lot of creative fields and so excited to learn things about styling and writing and things like that. Being that he was a model actor, he had so many connections and would always get invited to events. And he was always so willing to bring me to those events and introduce me to those people. He would always integrate me into his work. I'd drop by his office and kind of slowly started bringing me more and more into his life and making the active effort to make it feel like he supported my blogging or my creative endeavors, right? And I remember actually one of the first events that he brought me to was a Philippine Fashion Week Forever 21, I think, pakatagal na nito eh, like Forever 21 fashion show at SMX, I think. And I was so happy to be there. I think we sat second row and I was so shocked. I was like, oh my God, my first ever fashion show. I was maybe 12 or 13 years old and he brought me to that. Later on in my teens, at about the ages of 15 to 16, he would always drive me to work. He would try to help me get connected with agents, VTRs, attend castings because I was kind of interested in acting. He was always asking me like, oh, what's your next shoot? When's your next event? And bringing me along, really, driving me, being super supportive. And it was those things that I was always so grateful for. Because again, my mom was so busy, raketera ng taon, I ended up spending more time with model dad during this time. And I ended up talking to him all the time. I would say some days we would even spend more time talking, me and my model dad versus me and my mom, because literally you're stuck in the car together for 1 to 2 hours every single day. We got so close to the point that sometimes when I would have my own events even, I would bring him and I'd be like, hey, do you want to come to this event? Blah, 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 when I was starting to be an influencer, content creator, whatever. And he would always be so G. So ayun, parang feeling ko we were getting close. And because he was, again, from the States, he's from Chicago, he was very westernized and I felt like I could tell him anything, make chica, cuento, and he really wouldn't judge me. Me and my family, we, I guess, would have a very different dynamic compared to a lot of Pinoys. We would fully go to the palace, revel together, get drunk together. I would drink with my parents, go out with my parents. I never had to come out to my parents. It was always very open. It got to a point where I think I was like 16, 17, where I truly felt that we were close. And I know that it's hard for a lot of people to understand. How can you get so close to your stepdad? He's just your stepdad. And a lot of people like to rub that in my face. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you have to invalidate it. I also think that you should be grateful that you don't understand it because it truly means that you've never had to go through anything remotely similar in your life to understand it. And you should be grateful for that. Because if you had to understand it, or if you did understand it, it means you've gone through the trenches. And so knowing that at this point, I never really called him my stepdad, and I've always called him my dad. There's even this time that we were bowling together. You have to put up the names on the board. And I put his name as just dad instead of his name. And he was so happy and overwhelmed by that. He called his own mom and was like, oh my God, Kush put dad on the screen, and he was so happy that I saw him as my father. So in my family, kasi walang stepdad, half sister, ganon. Like even my sister, technically yes, on by blood, by paper, whatever, we're half siblings, but we call each other sisters. And same with all my dads. I've never called any of them my stepdads or stepfather or anything like that. I've always called them my dads, and they've always called me their daughters. And so by around, I think 2017, 2018, they were getting rocky as a couple. They've been together maybe 10 years na. At this point, super normal for couples to have rocky points in their marriage. It is 100% understandable. I don't want to get into all the details of it. But again, it was a rough patch. During this time that they were like rocky, on and off, working things out, blah, 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 I was off with him for a while, but I was still trying to make an effort. And then by around 2020, 2021, that's when we really rekindled and parang umu-okay na ulit. I wouldn't say that we were like the perfect family already, or that him and my mom were in the perfect place, whatever, but you could tell that things were getting better. And the way that my dad would talk to me about our family would always be like, I'm working on myself every day so that I can be a better father, a better husband. And during this time, of course, you're always rooting for the happiness of both your parents, whether it's apart or together. But because he kept saying to me that he was working on himself so that he could be a better dad and husband, and, seeing the pain that my mom's been through all of these years, I was always rooting for the happiness and my mom to be as loved as she possibly could. And so I kind of held on to those words. When this was all happening, I started to vlog finally with my family. And I've never really been the kind of person that vlogged with my family. I'd vlog, post them here and there, but not actively, because I always felt that my family, they aren't really social media friendly. Parang kasi, one, they don't speak Tagalog. Two, they're just not as kalog or like kenkoy. And so sometimes when I speak a certain way on camera, or when I act a certain way on camera, feeling ko ginajudge ako ng parents ko. So I don't normally vlog with them. But I know that they're not judging me. It's just a different side of me that they don't normally see at home. Because at home, I feel like I'm a lot more demure, classy, put together. Pero on camera kasi, and around my friends, parang I actually think that me on camera is me to my friends. And it's so different from me to my family. And it's not being two-faced or like whatever. But I think it's just different sides of me because of how I was raised, then how I am with my friends. You kind of act like a chameleon to try to adjust to certain social cues and social dynamics. But anyway, I started vlogging him. It was such a fun time because we got to connect closer as a family and spend time together, because knowing that we all lived apart from each other, it was nice to text my parents and kind of be like, hey, can we all hang out and film a vlog today? Or hey, can we all see each other so I can post this today? Parang it became a reason or a cause to hang out with each other more often, which I really enjoyed. We even did a couple trips together, which was really fun. During this time also, his Instagram was getting flooded with flirty messages, and I feel like people were really thirsting over him. I didn't think anything of it at the time as I was posting those family vlogs and all that, but imagine, as I was posting those family vlogs, so many people were in my DM saying, your dad's on Tinder, your dad's on Bumble, I just saw your dad at Yandasitas, I saw your dad at the palace making out with this bitch, your dad is seeing this famous wedding designer, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like losing my shit, because a lot of the people were in my DMs kind of letting me know, just girl to girl, like, hey, your dad's up to this, huh? I really appreciated it. And it was in those moments I realized, oh my gosh, my followers, y'all are my besties. You guys are ride or die. It really got to a point where I got closer to my followers din, kasi sila na mismo yung nagsasabi sa akin kung ano yung nangyayari in my dad's life while he was lying to me. And so many things happened, whether it was him seeing this one bitch, another bitch, him lying, saying he was on a trip but he was actually here, saying like, oh, I'm just gonna go to church, I'm just gonna work on myself, blah, 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 but then apparently he's juggling 5 different bitches. Joins Rotary because he thought that he wanted to be more into humanitarian work. Turns out he had a bitch in Rotary. There was even this one like famous wedding designer who was a common friend of a lot of my other friends. And I fully reached out to her. I was like, hey, are you one of my dad's bitches? Because honestly, I've always been the palaban, attack dog of my family, I would say. Compared to a lot of people in my family, I would say I am a little kooky because my mom, she is so full of grace. She is so put together, classy, demure. She would never stoop so low, but I would. I am not my mama, and I've always been the kind of person that, okay, if you go low, I'll go lower. I know it's not something to be proud of, but when you touch my family or you piss off my family or hurt any of my family members, I will fucking come for you. And today will be your last day. And so when I found out that common friends of mine were going to my dad and kind of flirting with them, of course I would defend my family, and of course I would stand up for my mom because she is so kind and gracious that she wouldn't do that for herself. It got to a point even where, you know, people I've worked with were going for my dad, and parang lumalaki talaga yung ulo ng dad ko during this point, juggling so many of these bitches. One of the bitches I even fully had lunch with in Boracay, only to find out that a week later, she and my dad were dating, who shall not be named because she even tried to sue me. And that kind of just says where me and my dad are at in the moment, because the fact that he's seeing the kind of bitch, and I keep saying one of these bitches because there are so many and I don't want to name drop because she's trying to sue me, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to pinpoint a single bitch. I'm not talking about one specific bitch. The fact that one of my dad's bitches even has the thought to sue me means that my dad's not defending me to her. I don't really have a relationship to save here. I think it escalated last year when one of my dad's bitches messaged my boyfriend asking my boyfriend to tell me to talk to my quote-unquote stepfather. And that kind of language was never tolerated in my household, in my family. There's no step or half whatevers. None of that. It was always dad, sister, brother, whatever. Like, and the fact that model dad would even let this bitch spew those kinds of words out of her mouth clearly shows where we're at in our relationship, or lack of. That truly shifted my perspective on me and model dad, because I always thought that there was room to save the relationship. Even when we were fighting, he was always so kind and would send over flowers, long messages, texts saying he'd miss me, saying that happy birthday, blah, blah, blah. But it really also took a turn last year, Christmas, when he sent me nothing. This year on my birthday, model dad didn't at the very least greet me. That's when I knew. I was like, okay, he will ride or die for one of his bitches rather than his own family, who stood by him when he was broke, stood by him when he had no jobs. But then this one fat bitch that gave him a teeny tiny little bit of attention, he is gonna ride or die for. And my mom is absolutely drop dead, gorgeous, stunning. So to put that kind of disrespect on my mom's name and my family's name, and just a lot of different things piling up over the past few months or over the past few years. At this point in my life with model dad, I don't think that there is any room for repairing it. I've always been open to the opportunity of having more love in my life and being open to reconciling, being happy. It also takes two to tango. I've only ever wanted a happy, loving relationship with any of my dads, especially model dad, because he is the father of my sister. But if he's going to let these bitches talk about him like he's my stepdad versus my dad who's been around with me for so long. And again, I don't expect you guys to understand anymore, because y'all are so quick to judge me and say shit like, oh, he's not really your dad, so you should move on and you should move on and get over it, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But at the same time, you'll never understand the connection that we had because he raised me like his own. Model dad would always lie, and we'd be on family trips. He'd apparently have a bitch there, wouldn't even know it. He would be dating some of my friends, and I would just find out through my other friends. And then him saying, sorry, I'll work better on it. I still love your mom. I want to be this. I want to be that. But then never following through with the actual actions. It put me in such a weird spot because I was holding on to the promises or holding on to the ideas of having a dad. I didn't even want my parents to be together. That's the thing. I just wanted him to stop lying and be an active father figure. I think it's one thing to want your parents to be together, but I'm too old for that shit. I don't actually want my parents to be together if they wouldn't be happy. What I would want is for him to stop lying and just being like, hey, this is my girlfriend. Or like, hey, I truly care about this woman. This is my girlfriend. But he would never do that. He would always lie and say like, oh, I don't know her. Or like, oh, your friends are lying. Like some weird shit like that versus owning up to it. And I think that was the piece missing in the giant puzzle. That he could never admit that one of these bitches was his girlfriend, or that he was seeing this woman being lied to kind of did something to me, to be honest. I feel like it built this lack of trust situation, or I felt like I couldn't believe men for a really long time. Before the age of 16, I was already broken up with 3 different times with 3 different dads. And I would tell my mom that as much as she had to break up with partners, I had to break up with fathers different times over. And that's a different kind of hurt and pain to go through. I knew that she was struggling, or that she was going through it in the trenches fighting for her life. But so was I, because it's different to look at someone as your partner, but it's also a different relationship to look at someone that you look up to as your father, look for a father figure. And a lot in my life, I felt like I was always looking for a father figure. I was already going through all of those things at such a young age, which I wasn't fully able to process. And I know that it would have been nice if my mom protected me from these situations, but she's also just human. She's also just living life for the first time, and she deserves love. She deserves happiness. And unfortunately, she bet them on the wrong people. That's not her fault. It shows more about them than about her. It shows more about the people around her that did her dirty than her. Because I'm so proud of my mom and how she constantly chose to love and be the bigger person and opened her heart again and again, even after she was done dirty. Because that ain't me. Again, I'm not my mama. Like, I fuck people over when they fuck me over. I do think at the end of the day, I'm in such a better headspace now. Of course, I have my days where the daddy issues hit hard. Like, recently, my racer dad was in the Philippines over November, and he said that he'd meet up with me, but he didn't text me the entire month. You know? And so parang may mga moments na umaasa ka talaga na people will reach out to you when they say they will, when you hold on to false promises. But what I'm trying to realize now, or what I'm trying to set in my mind, is that I shouldn't hold on to those things. Actions speak louder than words. If they're willing to be in my life, they would show it, and I shouldn't expect it. I know that for some people, this topic might be super umay for them, na parang, grabe, hindi pa rin nakaget over, blah. I get those comments here and there, but again, be grateful you don't understand it. These are just learnings that I can share with people. These are experiences that I can learn from, and hope that when I have kids one day, I'm not gonna end up having kids with a partner like that. Going through situations like this has taught me so much more about myself, what I expect from someone, what I expect from myself, how I love, what kind of love I expect, even from my partner. I think that instead of me getting used to low standards, the bar has risen so much because I've been treated like shit all the time by how many dads. And so now that I'm dating a man, my standards are so high. I really tell my man, like, if you don't provide for me, bitch, bye. If you don't do this for me, bitch, bye. Because I've gone through the trenches already. So even if people, I don't know, sometimes people feel awa na parang, ay, kawawa, she went through this, or like, oh my God, it's so rough. I'm still grateful that I'm able to make the shift and turn it into a learning experience, because now I don't really date shitty men. Like, ever. I've never really dated a shitty man to begin with because my standards have always been so high, which is why I've always ended up in long-term relationships with a clearer mindset of what I want and how I want to be treated, because I've been through the trenches fighting for my life to be loved by all these people, that now I'm at the point where I don't want to fight to be loved by my partner. I want my partner to treat me the way I want to be loved, how I want to be taken care of. And it's taught me so much. Knowing how graceful and kind my mom is, it's so nice of her, because if that was me, all of my dad's bitches would have been bald by now. I would have yanked them at the roots. I would have trashed their cars. I'm kidding, for legal reasons. But I truly believe, I don't know where I got this side of me from. I know where I got this side of me from my racer dad. I'm pretty sure I got this from him because he is so palaban. And that's not my mom. That's definitely from my dad's side. Again, we're all dealt different cards. It just so happens that the cards that I was dealt was this: hindi matangos yung ilong ko and daddy issues. Some people think that I might have it all because, oh, you're so financially independent. You got to achieve this at such a young age. You got to achieve that. You've been working. You get all this PR from brands. Yeah, but like none of my dads actually love me. So I think God is fair. At least for one of his current bitches, I was the one who reached out personally pa nga eh, and said, hey, I have a lot of respect for you. Could you let me know? I heard through the grapevine that you're dating my dad. Could you let me know if this is true or not? And then she blocked me. The kinds of people that model dad was choosing to be around were not the kinds of people that I wanted to be in my life or that I want for my sister to be around. I am so deeply protective of my sister, and I think a lot of you might relate. I don't know if it's eldest daughter syndrome. I feel like we could do a whole episode on eldest daughter syndrome, what it takes to be an eldest daughter. Because of me being a quote-unquote ate, I am so protective of the kind of person that my sister will turn out to be, or the traumas that she may experience because of model dad. And I've been through so much trauma already, and I didn't want this to be one big trauma dump, but I did want to give you guys context to what the daddy issues are and all the lore behind all three of them. Unfortunately, I'm not in a good place with model dad right now. I don't know if we'll ever be. Probably if he, and when he rather, breaks up with his most recent round of bitches. It really takes two to tango. It would take a lot of personal growth on his end for me to even be open to the idea of getting hurt again, because that's the thing. I would get so excited when my model dad would be like, oh, we can do this together and be happy and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, boba talaga ako eh. Like, I would hang on to those things. But now I'm in a much better space. I know it sounds like, oh my God, ang dami ko namang pinagdaanan na matay pa yung papa ko, tapos yung isa, my dad's brother got shot also, and then I got this car, and then I had to stage it with Disney sounds, and parang ang dami ng ganap. But at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful to have learned so many things from it. I'm grateful to have shifted my perspective and taken a lot of it with me. I'm so grateful to have been able to make the shift, to take learnings with me, to take these experiences and literally make me the person I am today. I know it sounds so cheesy, but it's so true. Another thing that I learned was that life goes on. You know, all you have to really depend on yourself is you. Yes, you can say your family, but because I've been fucked over by my family, my fathers, so many times over, I learned at such a young age that I should fend for myself. I need to work for myself. I can't rely on other people. I need to have my own money, because dads were always in and out for me. They weren't someone I could rely on, and so it gave me the work ethic that I have now. It gave me the grit to be excellent. Excellent? No, but really though, because wala eh, like grabe, bakla na nga ako, wala pa akong papa. Parang wow, like choose a struggle, you know? So I had to be good. I didn't really have any other option. And I also felt that for my mom and my sister, I felt like I had to be that strong one, or the person na has got it all figured out, working really hard, becoming financially independent, because we couldn't rely on him. And so in many ways, I guess it brought out the masculine side of me, diba? Or it brought out this masculine energy in me. But it's something I'm grateful for. If I didn't go through all of those things, I probably wouldn't be as strong as I am now. Or I probably wouldn't have the grit that I have now, or the power to honestly say, I bet on myself every day. I think that I am so proud to be able to say that na at the end of the day, I have me. It's translated so much into work na even with like A or the interns or my team, whenever they can't do something, I'm very quick to be like, sige, ako na lang talaga. Because it's given me the attitude where I don't rely on other people. If you can't fulfill it, it's fine, I will. If you can't pay for something, if a man can't pay shit for me, don't worry, I will. It has made me invest so much into myself, my money, my time, my energy, my skill sets. I've grown it so much because being fucked over this many times has taught me the only thing that you can bet on is yourself. Nobody can take away your skill set, your knowledge, your power, your connections, your hardworkingness, your character. And wow, ginawang miss you. No, but really, like, I truly feel that that's how it's played out for me. There's still so much to learn, and that's what I've learned. I'm just grateful. Like, I am that bitch because of all these daddy issues. That said, thank you so much for listening to the Bad Bitch Bible. I will see you girls, gays, and days next time. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out GMAX Keto this 12/12. Bye!